There's a strange thing about lavender that almost nobody warns you about. You can do everything right. Water it, feed it, give it a beautiful sunny spot, and it will reward you with a lush green mound of foliage and not a single flower. It looks healthy, it looks happy, and it stays completely, stubbornly bloomless. Whether you're growing Hidcote, Munstead, or phenomenal lavender, this is one of the most frustrating things that can happen in a garden. And then somewhere else, in a gravelly patch of ground nobody has touched in months, a half-forgotten lavender plant is covered in purple. No fussing, no feeding, just flowers. For years I assumed blooming was a reward for good care. It isn't. Lavender blooms for reasons that have almost nothing to do with kindness. And once you understand what actually triggers those flowers, the whole plant starts to make sense. So today I want to go through the real mystery of why lavender blooms, because it's not what most of us are taught to look for. And the fourth trigger I'll get to near the end, pruning, might be the most important of all. To understand why lavender flowers, it helps to know where it comes from. The true kind, Lavandula angustifolia, is a Mediterranean plant. It grows wild on dry, rocky hillsides around the coasts of Spain, France, and Italy, in thin, poor soil under a hard, bright sun. Hot days, cool nights, very little rain, and almost no one taking care of it. This is different from lavandin, which is the hybrid Lavandula times intermedia, bred mainly for commercial oil production. Lavandin is vigorous and tough, but Lavandula angustifolia, the true lavender, is the one most of us grow in our gardens, and it's the one this whole story is really about. That origin story is the whole key. Everything lavender does, including when and why it blooms, is a memory of that hillside. And most of the time, when a lavender refuses to flower, it's because we've accidentally given it a life that's far too comfortable. Let me go through what actually triggers the blooms. The first one is sun, and there's no getting around this one. Lavender isn't a plant that tolerates full sun. It requires it. We're talking at least 6 hours of direct sunlight a day, and honestly, more is better. Here's what happens when it doesn't get that. In partial shade, lavender doesn't die, and that's the confusing part. It puts out soft, leggy green growth, reaching toward whatever light it can find, and it spends all its energy on leaves instead of flowers. You end up with a plant that looks lush and gives you nothing. If your lavender is green and healthy but bloomless, the very first thing to check isn't the soil or the fertilizer. It's how many hours of raw, direct sun that spot actually gets. Not bright, direct. The second reason is the one people find hardest to believe. Lavender blooms better when it's a little stressed. Think back to that rocky hillside. Poor soil, sharp drainage, not much water. Lavender evolved to flower under exactly those conditions because in a harsh environment, flowering is how a plant reproduces before hard times arrive. Comfort tells lavender there's no rush. A bit of hardship tells it to bloom. So when we plant lavender in rich, moisture-holding garden soil and water it like a tomato, we're sending the wrong signal entirely. The plant reads all that abundance as permission to relax, and it grows foliage instead of flowers. What lavender actually wants is lean, gritty, fast draining soil that's slightly alkaline, ideally somewhere around a pH of 6.5 to 7.5. If your ground is heavy or holds water, work in plenty of sand, grit, or fine gravel, or grow it in a pot where you control the mix. The goal is soil that water passes straight through. Soil that would make most plants struggle is soil that makes lavender bloom. Most lavender varieties, including Hidcote and Munstead, are hardy in USDA zones 5 through 9, and in colder zones especially, that sharp drainage matters even more over winter. Which brings us straight to water, the third piece, and the one that quietly ruins the most lavender plants. The instinct is kindness. A plant looks a bit tired, so we water it. With lavender, that kindness is a slow mistake. An established lavender is genuinely drought tolerant, and it wants to dry out completely between drinks. Constantly damp roots don't just stop at flowering, they invite root rot caused by water molds like Phytophthora and Pythium, which is the most common way these plants are lost. The rule is simple: water deeply, then wait, and let the soil dry right out before you water again. A young plant in its first season needs a bit more help while it settles in, but an established lavender in the ground, in most climates, needs far less water than you'd ever think. When in doubt, wait another few days. Lavender almost always prefers a little too dry over a little too wet. The fourth trigger is the one hardly anyone talks about, and it might be the most important of all if you want blooms year after year: pruning. Lavender flowers on new growth. If you never cut it back, the plant slowly turns woody at the base, splits open in the middle, and produces fewer and fewer flowers on older and older stems, until one day it's mostly bare wood and disappointment. This process of the stems hardening off and losing their ability to regenerate is called lignification, and once the old wood is fully lignified, lavender can't regrow from it. The fix is an annual prune. After the plant finishes flowering, or in early spring, cut it back into a neat mound, taking off about 1/3 of the growth. And here's the one rule that matters more than any other: never cut back into the old bare wood. Lavender struggles to regrow from that. Stay in the green, leafy part of the stem, always. Done right, a good prune keeps the plant compact, young, and generous, with flowers for years longer than an unpruned one. This is true whether you're growing an English variety like Munstead, a French type like Lavandula stoccas, or a larger, phenomenal lavandine. So here's the thing that took me an embarrassingly long time to understand. Every instinct we have for taking care of a plant, feed it, water it, shelter it, give it rich soil, is the exact opposite of what makes lavender bloom. Lavender doesn't flower because it's comfortable. It flowers because some deep part of it still thinks it's clinging to a dry hillside in the south of France in poor soil under a punishing sun with rain that may or may not come. The blooms are its response to that hardship. When we recreate a little of that hardship on purpose, lean, slightly alkaline soil, blazing sun, deep and infrequent water, an honest prune, the plant does the one thing it was always built to do. The mystery of why lavender blooms isn't really a mystery at all. It's just that lavender was never asking for more, it was asking for less. And once you give it less, in the right ways, it gives you back more than almost anything else in the garden. If your lavender has been all leaf and no flower, tell me in the comments which of these 4 you think has been the missing piece: the sun, the soil, the water, or the prune. I read every comment and I usually reply. And if you found this useful, I made a whole video on bringing a lavender back from the edge when it's looked completely dead, and a lot of the same thinking runs right through it. It's on the screen now. Thanks for being here. I'll see you in the next one.